This conference will now be recorded.
And we're going to mute all the lines. So let's go ahead and get started. With us today is Matt Jennings, Chief Executive Officer of Quest Federal Credit Union, Chase Eikenberry, Senior Project Manager, Regional Growth Partnership, David Haushalter, Vice President, Robinson Fin Machines, and Kim Kaufman, co-owner of Skinny's Tavern. And today, each of our speakers will be addressing questions that will support our businesses in learning how to go from surviving to thriving and help to strengthen your business resiliency. So we'll start with our very first question, and that is knowing that here, even us at the Alliance, we've had to shift, much like everyone on this call. And as we move slowly from the pandemic mode, we need to stop and reflect on the lessons that we've learned and what we need to do moving forward to be able to survive. So we have asked each of our panelists, from your perspective, what have you learned post-COVID-19? And Matt, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay, thanks, Jesse, and good morning, everyone. I guess what we were fortunate to have done prior to the COVID shutdown was continued with our disaster planning, business continuity, disaster recovery work, and we keep that up to date. Our Chief Information Officer, Brian Sprang, has oversight of that, and of course, a lot of you know Brian quite well from his time at the Chamber. But we continue to keep an eye on that. We plan for it. It was maybe just good timing and good luck on our part. But we had just wrapped up a review and refresh of that plan in January and early February. So when all of this happened, it was really top of mind. We were already thinking that way. We had just completed this exercise, and we did it as a team. We did it as a group, and it was a great exercise. We were able to pull that plan out. It wasn't real dusty. It hadn't sat on a shelf for a while, and just execute it. And so I guess, first lesson learned is that one, don't wait to plan. Plan for stuff like this. Plan for, whether it's inclement weather. We've had ice storms in the past. We've had wind storms. Plan for these types of things. And this is one that's really tough. And I'm not sure that any one of us saw this on the horizon, but it is something we need to be thinking about, obviously. So be prepared, plan, communicate that with your staff, make sure everyone's on the same page of what we're going to do and how we're going to react, and then communicate that to the public, communicate that to your members, in our case, clientele, customer base, whatever that may be. So that was probably the first most valuable lesson that we took away from this. You're muted, Jesse.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
I don't think thought we were going to be where we are today, and I know a lot of people never thought that we would see all of our businesses shut down nationwide. So for businesses to be prepared and having already created a plan certainly does help, at least to take some steps and modify as they go. So thank you for sharing that. Chase, can you share with us what you have learned post-COVID-19?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for inviting the RGP and the Jobs Ohio network to participate. I've been working a lot with Hardin County and your organization a lot lately because you guys have some exciting stuff happening. Through the RGP and through my work for Jobs Ohio, we're definitely in full throttle. I'm going to take this in kind of two different directions. So first, this has taught us as economic development practitioners, along with the businesses that we support, a lot. Obviously, from our end in the economic development world, and Holly has handled this from her chair fabulously. We've worked on how we're responding to the pandemic, taking an active role in several things, including how we're working with businesses who may be able to retool their operations to supply the much needed PPE, and those ongoing efforts, and just also playing an active role in continuing to work through current leads and projects in our pipeline that might experience new barriers because of the pandemic. So a new barrier could be something like companies having to pay or set up employees to work from home. So how are we going to figure out those costs? Or a company's processes might now even be more costly because of safety measures they have to take, and just different overall CDC measures that have to be followed, especially if it's in an industry that we typically focus on, whether it's food processing and agribusiness, and other just advanced manufacturing companies. But from a business perspective, and what businesses are really informing me of in my role through Jobs Ohio, is that they've learned a lot about shifting priorities, managing delays in investments or projects, and how they just overall have to operate a little bit more effectively and more safe. The term essential worker or business is popular in a lot of businesses, including large and small manufacturers, food processing companies, like I mentioned, and automotive suppliers. They're now performing roles in a new way, realizing how essential their companies are in the supply chain efforts for different goods and services. Many folks have shifted some of their work as that, like we're seeing, on specific forms of PPE from large industrial users that might be able to donate to communities or health organizations. And then also, maybe they're now focusing on manufacturing products related to safety, related to COVID, related to future, whether we want to call it a pandemic or whatever, but future emergencies. So I think it's taught companies a great deal about their supply chain efforts and business assets that they have. And it's taught us a lot about what we have here domestically in the United States, and of course here in Ohio. So thanks. I hope that answered the question.
It did. I think we've been very surprised about how businesses have had the capacity to shift, and really thinking innovatively about how they were going to make that shift and how they would then serve the state and serve the nation. So that's pretty incredible. And I do think that we've really started looking at where are we getting our products and how can we continue to get our products closer to home. Thanks, Chase. All right, David, you're up. What did you learn?
Well, thank you, Jesse. Yeah, good morning, everybody. I think the thing for us is what appeared was how critical it is to have social media presence. Of course, for us, technically, our website is the key in being able to get that information out there so that you can continue to sell. But I think things that have to be focused on are how do you advertise on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of those type social medias, because without that, you're not going to be able to communicate with those people in a non-touch environment. And when we think about this younger generation that's coming up, it's how they want to interact anyway. So it's pushing some of us older people into understanding how that thought process works. So it was a good thing in that case for us. But the other thing that has to be done in this type of a situation is you have to manage cash flow. If you don't manage cash flow and stay on top of it almost on an hourly basis, if at least not a daily basis, you're never going to make it. It's just you've got to continue to pay the people that are supplying you so that you can continue to get those things out. And those are the takeaways that we see.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of us learned that what used to be our ceiling is now our floor, and the capacity to learn from social media and to get out there in front of the community. Social media became a lifeline for all of us. So I couldn't agree more. And cash flow is certainly important. And I think if businesses weren't planning ahead with their cash flow, they definitely were probably in trouble, and keeping an eye on it is detrimental. So thank you. And next we'll come down to Kim. Good morning, Kim.
Good. Am I unmuted? You can hear me? Okay, good. Morning. The question is, as we reopen, what have we learned? Well, unfortunately, we're not in a situation yet where we're fully back in business. So we're probably a little different than anybody else on here. Maybe restaurants were probably one of the first groups to shut down. And there's one of the last groups to get back in business. So this is a little longer for us. What we've learned is people still want to eat out. So whether they're taking it home, you know what I mean, at 6 o'clock on Friday night, you're still looking to go somewhere. So thankfully, we flexibility and adapting what everybody said, you find out what you can do in a hurry. So we just switched it up, went with the drive-through, and it's worked out okay. You know, we'd really like to be back in business, but so we're still learning. We're still learning from it. We're still changing things because we're not back to just business, you know, as usual. He talked about working capital. For a restaurant, it's daily. You don't invoice and wait 30 days for your money, or 45 days, you know. You change it over daily. So you see immediate difference in your cash flow. So thankfully, we had a little something, you know. We weren't unprepared, but I don't know that we were prepared for the length of this. So we're still learning. We still got a lot of things to figure out yet about reopening. Our space is confined, so following the guidelines is challenging for everyone. That's something we're still trying to figure out whether or not we'll be moving forward with that. So I don't think we're alone. A lot of the smaller restaurants, I mean, I drive through McDonald's every morning for my iced tea because they have the great iced tea, and they're not open for the inside, and they certainly have the space, I would think. So I think there's a lot of us together trying to figure it out, and but I believe in that flexibility and resiliency. So I think it will happen. I think we just need to just commit to what it is that we need to do and move forward with that. So that's all I have for that.
Thank you, Kim. We're going to move on to our next question, which is, what guidance do you have for businesses that are just surviving right now, but they want to be thriving? What can they do? And we'll start with you, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. And Kim, you know, my heart goes out to, you know, our area restaurants, hair salons. You know, you guys bore the brunt of this right off the get-go, and still trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. So know that we're all here to support you guys, and I can't wait to come through and get another cheeseburger and curly fries. So, you know, that's one of my favorites. But you know, Dave touched on this earlier, a couple different points, and that I think I was going to bring up. One is just to be really adaptable. You know, we sort of fashion ourselves as being adaptable. It's built into our name of Quest. But this was an exercise in just how adaptable are we. And we figured it out pretty quick. We communicated it well. And that goes back to what Dave was talking about with leveraging technology. You know, we've always had online banking and mobile applications, but we doubled down on those. We doubled down on our social media marketing. We went all in with electronic delivery of documents that, of course, is vital to what we do. And then, of course, e-signature of all types of loans and things like that, that people needed to survive, paperwork that we needed to do with folks to help them as they got through maybe a short term and now turning into a longer term layoff situation. So it's really just be adaptable, definitely leverage technology, do that before the crisis hits, get involved, figure out how you can use technology in your business to one, put you on the leading edge, two, to catch up with the younger generation like David mentioned, and then three, just to build out your brand and make sure that you're strong as you head into a time like this. I think another key point, and again, Dave touched on it, Kim had mentioned it, and that is that while you have good economic times, while you have good company performances, to build that war chest, have a little war chest of cash build up, capital that that when times get tight, that you can leverage that to help get you through. And I think that's just best practice in business across the board. But it's also something that I know is easier said than done, but it's something that you need to focus on, just like having a savings account for your household. It's basically have that rainy day fund, have that excess cash flow for times like this, for times when the economy takes a turn for you. So those are the things that I recommend that will help you thrive instead of just survive. And I can tell you from our experience, and this is far from over as far as I'm concerned, but currently Quest is doing really well financially. We're performing at a high level, and a lot of that had to do with that forward planning, being adaptable, leveraging technology, making sure we had adequate capital going into what could be a disaster. So that would be my thoughts on question 2.
Thanks, Matt. How about you, Chase? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with everything Matt said, actually, very, very much so. To piggyback on that, the simplest thing that the members on this call could do, or the businesses in Hardin County, is to call us, to not only call your office, but also involve us as well. We, with you guys and some of our other partners, we have implemented some programs, and we have existing programs that can assist, whether that is through Jobs Ohio funding for investments or retention and expansion efforts. That's separate. We certainly would love to explore all of that and figure out how to assist, figure out what those main pain points are, what the barrier is that you're not feeling that thriving. So I would say first call us, call Holly, call you guys, call myself, and then the team together can act as your resource to provide, whether it's assistance from local opportunities out there. Ohio Means Jobs, Hardin County, the Jobs Ohio team, or even Development Services Agency. So through the state, there's been several programs implemented through DSA for small businesses and businesses directly impacted through COVID. And we have also, through Jobs Ohio, implemented programs as well, and we have our existing stuff. So I would say call us, do not be shy. This is what we're charged with. And to Matt's earlier point, we would loop in the other partners. So whether that is financial institutions, whether that is some sort of port authority, or perhaps government agency that we need to leverage something from, that's our job. So don't be shy. Even if it doesn't fit the box that you think we fall into, well, I might not be able to help, but someone that we know, that this team knows, can assist. So I would say just don't be shy and call us.
Thank you, Chase. Do you mind putting your email address in the chat box so they can reach out? Thank you so much. David, can you share some insight?
Sure. I think the thing is that's most critical is your website. In this case, is your website needs to be user friendly. It needs to talk about everything that you do, easy to get around. I think for retail places, or maybe even maybe the restaurants, or however, you should be able to order and pay online. You need that, all needs to be in if you want to thrive instead of just survive, which I think is what the question is. And so by having that robust website application available, and that it's user friendly, that's critical. Not that just that you can navigate around it. Have your old granny get in there and see if she can navigate around through that thing, and you'll find the holes that you'll figure out. And that's what's going to be key, even going forward, even after this is all over, because it's going to be the new way to do business. I mean, we're already doing business that way when you think of Amazon and all of those things, but it's now going to get pushed all the way down to the local level. Everything's going to be done that way. It's all going to be e-commerce, which is what they've been saying since the 90s. And, we're finally here. This is it. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. And let me remind everyone, if you have additional questions or you're thinking of something or a comment that you'd like to share, please use the chat box so we can have that kind of collected and ready to go for our question and answer portion. But we'll turn it back over to Kim. And, what is your advice, Kim, for businesses to go from just surviving into thriving?
Well, as they started the closings, you're dreading it, all along. You're just waiting for the shoe to drop, and then when you finally get to the place where they said yes, we shut you down. There's a little bit of a relief period where, oh, now I can move forward. Now I can come up with, all the things that have been in the back of our heads. What do we do? Well, for a little place like us, luckily, I think we were lucky. We already had a significant carryout business. So being able to stay open, however, it is a percentage. It's a smaller percentage of our normal business, but we are still able to stay open because we had that to begin with. We just needed to find a way to build on it. So, for a little place like us, I thought it was very clever. We came up with a drive-through window. It's done the job. People no longer had to come in, put a little sign. They were a little confused at first where it used to be a bar window, but now it's a drive-through. So some of the things that I came up with, my partner shot down, which I thought were promotions to, encourage our to-go business. In the early days of the COVID, I suggested giving away toilet paper. They frowned on that, thinking it would reflect poorly on our food. However, I am here to tell you that what promotion was used in a number of locations across the United States. I feel vindicated that was a good idea. So I don't know. My next thought was that we would do a Sonic kind of thing in the drive-through or in the parking lot, and have car hops and roller skates. Sue was not on board for that. However, I did have a couple employees who told me they rollerbladed. Now, some of these sound like far-fetched ideas, but honestly, if you want, you have to have a hook. You have to have a little something, and people might come out to play bingo in the parking lot during a complete shutdown. And as far-fetched as it sounds when you're throwing out ideas, sometimes it's what works in the restaurant business. People like to come out for whatever specials. When Dave said that the website, we do not have a website. We're only using Facebook right now, and that is something that we, online menus, people calling, we need to have that so that people can see what we have. Skinny's has been there forever. Most people know what we have, but for those who are just hearing about it, they need a menu, access to to those things, and online is the way. So we'll still hand them a paper menu, of course, but most people want to do it that way. So I don't think anything's too far-fetched sometimes. I think some of those craziest ideas may actually work in our situation. So I'm leaving the door open for a lot of things. I think when you sit down and you think about what works and what doesn't work, you keep good track of it, and then you try to build on that. So I guess that's my takeaway, is that sometimes you just got to think outside the box with some of those crazy ideas. I think they might be the key to moving forward.
Well, Kim, I don't think you were far-fetched with the toilet paper. I think there was a point in the pandemic when I could not find toilet paper, and I would have been all about coming to get some. And I would have loved to have seen your.
A burger, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. I mean, people were but I couldn't get our hands on enough of that quite at the first day, but I really worked it for a while. But so
Absolutely. Okay, so Chase, this is a question that I had put out to you, but any of our speakers who might want to share some insight, please feel free. But what we thought was, you bring such a unique perspective to this call, because your organization is not just working regionally, statewide, national, you're working globally. So what is your prediction for the next 6 months when it comes to economic growth and recovery? What are you thinking?
Yeah, and this, I'm glad you asked this question, because we're getting asked this a lot, and we're discussing these points. Of course, with the DeWine administration, the leadership of Jobs Ohio is discussing it with our global partners. So I had to do a little homework and take some of our message and revamp it. But I think, and I know just based on some of our numbers, that Ohio is pretty well positioned to emerge great out of this. Regionally, within the U.S., right now we have the largest rainy day fund balance out of all of the states. We're second, as of yesterday when I checked, second highest in bond rating, and I think we are ranked second in real GDP growth. Just to kind of add to that, last year we ranked #1 for all of our Governor's Cup projects through Site Selection Magazine, which your organization participates in as well. This is an industry-specific publication for site selectors, consultants, and economic development practitioners. It's a really good indicator of strong states that can survive. Back to your previous question, can survive through certain things. We typically are up there within Governor's Cup projects and site selection ranking. We're typically up there along with Texas, and last year we beat out Texas, so we're #1. From a project investment and overall company feel, new leads and opportunities continue to be developed. Not only are we working on attraction efforts through RFIs that are coming into Jobs Ohio directly, but certainly we're working on developing our new leads for our existing companies who are in our communities. For those on the phone, I cover a 17-county region through Jobs Ohio. Hardin County is within our region, and Hardin County is participating in several of those RFI activities, and we're constantly talking to companies within Hardin County. So for example, maybe just to kind of back up a little bit, the first quarter of this year was really successful. Actually, despite everything, we only had a couple existing projects essentially slowed down. just to see what happens within their market and just to kind of get it settled. And we're showing all signs of project volumes, and companies continue to carry on that conversation about making investments in Northwest Ohio, including Hardin County. Specifically in Hardin County, some of our conversations have been with our existing companies who have previously received a Jobs Ohio incentive, who happen to be in our Jobs Ohio portfolio, and they are qualifying for some of the new programs that we have created as a result of COVID-19. So we've communicated those resources out there. They've applied, some have been successful in receiving those benefits. So there's a lot of conversations. I think it's really assisting us with our efforts to continue that ongoing dialogue to really just build that business relationship to the private economic development system that we have here. And we've been assisting local communities and developers and utilities and other stakeholders with a new program that I know Holly's familiar with, that we're calling our Jobs Ohio Site Inventory Program. So this is where we are taking an active look in developing sites and buildings, good quality sites, spec buildings, and looking for potential funding, not only through Jobs Ohio, but through a partnership with certain developers. So this is really important for our future. It's going to allow us to have a very robust inventory of updated and marketable sites and buildings. And this will allow the region to have all of those needs met when prospects come in and they say, you know, we need a site that is rail served, that is this, or this, or we need a building that has this, or this. So we continue to try to fill the pipeline with inventory, but also be responsive as possible. And I think it's paying off. Our second quarter, we're at the end of it, and I think we are not slowing down. So things are moving now that I hate the term new normal, but it's starting to become that. But I think that the initial shock has worn off from automotive suppliers and our advanced manufacturers, and we're discovering what they can do, and they're discovering and they're taking it on like no other. So hopefully I answered your question.
You did a great job. And I would like to put that out to all of our speakers as well. I know this one wasn't one that we prepared for, but I know, Matt, you have insight from the financial sector. David, I'm sure being a global business, you might have a little insight as well. And so if you have anything you want to share, I would definitely open the floor to you as well.
So I guess from a local perspective, you know, people are recovering well. The key to this is going to be the layoffs and getting people back to work, getting things restarted, and that's for the broader market. And of course, we have offices in Hardin, Logan, and Wyandotte counties, and we're seeing that consistently across the board. That for the broader community, it's about getting people back to work. Now, I think for our area businesses, and Kim can maybe speak better to this, but for our small businesses, there's a lot of pent-up demand. We see, and this is a measure that we use, and it's just disposable cash that the average member has in their account, and that has steadily been increasing over the first 2.5 months that this went on. The moment that we were seeing reopening in the economy, whether that was our hair salons, our small family-owned restaurants, that type of stuff, then we noticed those balances start to come back down, not to a normal level or an average level, still at a higher cash level balance. But to me, that means that our consumers here have some pent-up demand. They want to go out, like Kim said. They want to, on Friday night, they want to go out to dinner. So I think that as we get, and I shouldn't say think, I believe that as we get stuff open back up, all of our businesses back to some sense of normalcy, that we'll see a nice recovery because there is a lot of demand out there by the consumer.
I would agree with that, Matt. Based on the global economy, as that all comes back online and people get back to work, it's starting to pick back up. I mean, this is a self-creation. We created the economy on our own. So it's not that there was, people didn't want things or didn't need things or weren't moving forward with things. So those demands still need to be met. Now, things that are going to suffer, you take the cruise industry, the cruise line boats. I mean, they're going to suffer, and they're going to suffer for years. The commercial aerospace industry is going to suffer, and is going to go through a restructuring. So there's going to be some loss in that goes on. But Chase talked about the automotive guys and how fast they're coming up. They can't build cars fast enough. I mean, it's crazy. It is insane. They can't get parts because either part manufacturers in Mexico or in China are still shut down, those kind of things, which I think, and Chase alluded to this, that simply opens up that we onshore that work again and get it back here close to the place where the manufacturing is going on, and we don't have to suffer this type of issue in the future, so that when the state of Ohio comes back online and all of those pieces are made in the state of Ohio, that whole plant comes back up online, and they're not so reliant on overseas type things. Not to say that overseas type things aren't bad, and we're going to still have them, and it's still going to go on. But I think we learned that maybe we don't want all of our pharmaceuticals being made in China. Might be something that we learned. So there's a lot of things that we learned out of this this pandemic that are going to benefit us, and if we do it right. And what I'm hearing from Chase is we're setting ourselves up to do things and offer things to people so that they have a place to come and manufacture. And when you think of Ohio and the location of Ohio inside of the United States, we are close to everyone. We are only 500 miles away from everywhere. So that gives us a huge leg up, and I think the global economy will come back, and I think that we can maybe pull in some of that work that we were offshoring back to the US.
Yeah, and Dave, just to piggyback off of that too, when you were talking about the travel industry, we've noticed a big shift in the consumer spending side again in boats, RVs, and motorcycles. And we call them toy loans, just, it is what it is. But what we're seeing is as people maybe, one, aren't able to travel because of restriction, or two, maybe not comfortable with outside of our region travel, we're starting to see a lot more staycation type of purchases. And I think that's great. I think it's great for family. It's great for our region and our local economy. But it is a shift in that consumer spending side of what they're prioritizing and how we can still recreate and have fun and have that family time. We're just going to do it a lot different than we've done it in the past. And of course, in this area where we do have the benefit of the Indian Lake region and the Indian Lake community, that's, I think, maybe helpful for everyone.
Agreed. I think we've found a new love for our local. And that's one thing that I was thinking for Kim, is she probably has a really great pulse on how people are turning back to their local restaurants and turning back to their local mom and pop shops. So Kim, do you have any insight? I imagine that the support from local has been strong. Your hand cut fries and your hamburger doesn't hurt, or your big T, but are you seeing the love from the local economy, and are you seeing that increasing, or is that slowing down?
No, people have been very supportive. It's humbling sometimes that they come through and you know, they still ask the questions, are you going to be open, you know, indoors for soon, you know, and we just don't have an answer, but they continue to come through the drive-through and they're supportive. They say, you know, they always are hoping for the best and, you know, asking how we're doing, and we're doing okay. And it's great to see them, even if it is, you know, through the drive-through. I hope we'll have an answer for indoor dining and when we'll be back on track in the next couple weeks. I think time will tell with what some of the numbers and are, how if they continue to rise or, you know, flatten out. I think we'll, in our area, we'll be a little more confident moving forward, but still the barriers are in place in terms of just size restrictions in ours. Were you asking this third question? I'm not even sure I had the right questions.
Yeah, we popped this question in on you, Kim. It was a pop quiz for you.
Well,
so
okay. So do you
job.
want to know what we're going to do in the future then?
Well, let's go ahead and
Last-
get that question out there. I may start with Chase though, because I know she's got to jump off here quickly.
Okay.
So what is your
Well, I just wanted to make sure I'm in the right place here.
absolutely stick on your script, Kim.
Thanks, Jesse. No, I think so. What steps should businesses be taking? Okay, so first, I think remembering all that we have been through, and if you are a business, making sure that you look at the positives and the things that you were not prepared for when this happened. So kind of on both ends of the spectrums. But first, I definitely think that companies should have a communication plan in place, especially not knowing what that crisis would look like. So maybe that's another thing that has to do with COVID. Maybe that's a different type of pandemic or a national emergency. But shortly after whatever crisis is identified, I think respective team members should meet to prepare a statement about what their plan is, acknowledgement of the issue. They should form a timeline and establish that timeline and communicate that to their key constituents, whether that's customers, key accounts, suppliers, employees, and then making sure those constituents and stakeholders have that primary spokesperson and point of contact for the company identified, and everything can flow correctly and appropriately, just because in times of crisis, I don't know about you guys, but even at our home lives are different. I'm sure everybody on this call was extremely stressed. And honestly, I've heard a lot of people say about how this was an emotional roller coaster, not only for businesses, and I'm sure Kim is like on an ongoing roller coaster, but for also home life. So I think consistency in the messaging and timeliness when you're dealing with your customers is key to retain them, to make sure they understand your challenges. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and open up to your trusted customers and suppliers by certainly, I mean, you're handling a crisis of whatever that could be. So I think that depending on what that looks like, the level of vulnerability seems to be kind of on trend right now. So there's this whole trend of being authentic, whether that is through online things like David mentioned, or utilizing your social media and communication. But always remember, simple is better, less is better. as long as you're transparent and honest. So I'd say take those communication steps to prepare, and hopefully the rest follows.
I love that. Thank you, Chase. So Kim, what tools can you give? What guidance should you or tools should we give to businesses to help them prepare for this next potential crisis, whatever that may be?
Well, for the restaurants, we did go through a period of supply issues. So as David said, for the manufacturing in general for the United States, they all shortages of car parts or whatever. That is in our business, it was beef. So even though there are farmers, galore out here with cows, we couldn't get beef. So one of the things that I think going forward is we would like to secure a local supplier of our beef. That was definitely something that we had been talking about anyway. We had hoped that we could do Hardin County raised beef in our restaurant as soon as we hit the mark that we thought it would make it, feasible. So buying local in terms of that would settle. Nobody wants to come to Skinny's and not get your burger. That's not going to work. So going forward, I think we'd like to move that for locally. So everything else, having a good relationship with your supplier. We happen to have a couple really great representatives that we deal with, and a couple of them scrounged up things for us when you just couldn't get them. You'd call him at night and you say, hey, and he'd call you back much later and say, I've got something in, you'll have to drive and get it, but, so when you have those kind of relationships, you get through another day or another week, you get to stay open with the things that people love. People are, I think, more understanding when you run out of something, even in a restaurant. No one wants to go to your restaurant and be out of the thing that you came for. And before, it was such a crisis. These are, you ruin someone's lunch, and that can ruin someone's day. You don't want that. So, but now people are a little more understanding. They're like, I get it. You cannot, we're all adjusting to supply and demand, and so everything isn't available all the time. And people really have been great about that. They're so supportive. You get it, oh, okay, instead of, a negative comment. So I think that in some cases, this has all brought out the best in people. I think people are more flexible. I think that they're happy to support locally. I think that we are happy for them for that. And I think there's a lot of positives. People will still, I hope they be able to come out to eat soon in our restaurant and have a pleasant dining experience. That is the other thing, that if you can't make it pleasant, it's not really worth going out, so that's been one of the challenges that we need to work on going forward to manage. But I feel that everything is doable, and I feel a certain bit of optimism with the fact that people are so flexible and considerate of what's going on. So
Thank you, Kim.
thank you.
David, how do you feel? What's your guidance for businesses as they prepare for what might be the next crisis?
Yeah, I mean, there are lessons learned here, and we just have to do better with how do we do things in a vacuum, which is that e-commerce piece, that online type thing, and advertising in those ways to make sure that you drive people to your door or to your website, or whatever it takes to be able to go. We had our business took a hit like everybody else, and so we decided that we had some extra time with some people, and we didn't lay anybody off or do any of those things. And so we went into an R&D project. And so we're trying to get that R&D project up and going that will actually enhance our website and allow us to put more information out there and drive more engineers to our website. So that's those are the kind of things that I think you have to do if you want to thrive and you want to push forward into the future. Is you have to figure out, okay, once I've covered all of my cash flow issues in my day-to-day paying of my suppliers and my employees and all of those things, what can we do that will position ourselves to be more agile or more value added to the customer? And once you can identify those, recognize them, and then put the effort towards that when you have the time, such as you might have now, because you're not fully working, it'll help out.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for sharing that. Matt, what's your guidance?
We have talked, we've talked about planning, we've talked about improving or at least tuning up your messaging and being prepared for this. But I'm going to come back to and say that, what we do best is service. We're here to serve a group of members. And so, our team here is most important to me. Well, I'm blessed to work with a great group of people, and they work hard every day. And I would say that moving forward, we're going to come back and we're going to do a big debrief on this. And I want to hear what everyone has to say. Those that are member facing every day, they're answering the phones, they're listening to the thoughts, concerns, worries of the consumer. I want to hear what they have to say. What could we have done better? Where do we need to perform better the next time something like this happens? And then we just take that all the way up to our through our management chain to our management team, our C-suite of executives, and just say, okay, this is what we've learned, and let's digest all of this. Let's really think it through, and circle back and make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, and then communicate that back to the staff that, hey, we heard you, we're listening to you, we're building a team here, and we're going to be better prepared than we were this time for the next thing that comes down the road. So just building our team, working as a group to make sure we're doing the best that we possibly can for our membership, and that we're providing fantastic service to people in a time of great stress. And that was important to us. So that'll be what we do next. And I highly recommend everyone out there, talk to your team, listen to them, get their insight. They do things, we all have different job duties, and I want to know what each of you learned from this so that we can be better as a team.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. We do have, we're going to move on to our question and answer portion of the call. We do have a question in the chat box, and this comes from Dr. Rick Smith. And he says, how does the panel feel the importance of schools opening back up in the fall impacts the economy and the workforce? And I'll let you guys just, David would love to take that one.
I'm due.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much for the question. Schools have to open. They have to go. It's a disaster for two working parents in a home, or a single parent that has to deal with the kids. And with the healthcare or the child care situation that came down, they closed all of that. It was a nightmare for those people. And so on that level, from when you think of it from a business side, that's critical for us. But where it's really critical is for the kid. We didn't serve kids with remote learning. I mean, if anybody that had kids that went through it, that was a total joke. They could not get done what needed to be done. Yes, there were things that went on, and yes, they answered questions, and yes, they took some tests, and they had a little bit of work to do, but it was not at the level that needs to be done and that can be done in face-to-face type education. We have to go back. I don't think it's a question, really. I think it's mandatory that we get the kids back to school. That's my opinion.
And David, I totally agree with you. I would follow that up with, I know there's a lot of concern, and Dave's a former long-term school board member. I'm in my, I guess, third month as a school board member, fourth month, and I've got to attend one in-person meeting, which is a challenge for the school administration to work through. But I worry that we're going to leave not just the social piece of school, but a true learning scar on this crop of kids, especially as they're advancing into the high school levels. Because yes, online learning worked when we had to make it work for a couple months, but there's something to be said about having the teacher facing the student and the student interacting with that teacher and interacting with the other students. And there's just a quality of learning there that we have to have for our children. And I'm afraid if we don't get back to that and do it in a, of course, safe manner, that it's going to leave a scar from the quality not being quite the same as what it was before. And then I will go forward and say that I appreciate that we have to do this in maybe a different way than what we've done it in the past to be safe and follow certain guidelines. But I also think that some of the control of that needs to be placed at the local level with our school districts. Those administrators know their communities best. And a one-size-fits-all policy for schools all across the country or the state, I don't believe is a great idea. I think it should be local decision-making, local control with input from the community and the parents and maybe the kids. And we can do this. We can do anything we set our minds to. There is no reason we can't go back to school in August in a safe environment.
I would agree with Matt. I think local control is best. Every community is different. There are various hot spots, as we all know. And with the way things seem to be shaping up this week with certain spikes in certain areas, some communities have more disadvantages than others, whether it's in a rural community or a more urban community. So from the employee side, I think a lot of businesses, if they have the ability to work from home, some businesses, depending on the department or whomever it is, they're working from home. They're not going back to their offices, or they're having a section or a segment of their workforce stay at home. Maybe it's going to become that's the new work from home model for that specific department. But those employees, especially if they have young children, that will really be a huge barrier if they have to continue to be teacher and employee while they're sitting at home. So I think there's options. There should be options for schools, because not everybody's home life is different. And we all know that. So I think if you have the working parents or parent, and then students are at home, I think there's much more distractions. I don't know how much justice we're doing our children, but that's just my personal opinion. So the more options that maybe the local leaders can provide to those students and to the parents, the better. And luckily in Hardin County, what I've seen is you guys have a massively supportive community of one another. So I think that is something to be commended.
Jesse, you're muted.
Thank you. Do you have any insight that you wanted to share?
Me? Yes. Well, not that hasn't already been said. I don't think there's a real great answer for this. You send the kids back, and you you possibly risk bigger outbreaks. You don't send them back. You risk the quality of their education. I don't envy anybody that has to make those decisions. My daughter's a college professor at the, ONU, and I know that she has to be prepared to teach every which way, depending on what's going on. Their students going back to campus is an issue. That's a lot of people moving in together. I'm not sure what they worked out about that at the college level yet. I hope that locally, what he said about locally, that maybe there might be some flexibility with that. We certainly haven't had in our area, Northwest Ohio, maybe as big an outbreak as what some of the areas are dealing with, the cities. So I hope that maybe they do look at that, when they make the decisions. And God bless all of them. It's going to be a tough fall and tough decisions for everybody. I don't envy anybody that's in that position right now.
Agreed. Well, it looks like we are at 9:32. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to email those to me and I will send those to the panelists. We can certainly get answers back to you, but we want to be cognizant of your time today. I do want to make sure that we take a minute to thank our President's Club sponsors. These are our sponsors who help make sure that we can put on these events and bring this type of information and education to our membership. So we want to say a great big thank you to them. Thank you to all of our panelists today. You brought such great information and insight to our membership, and I'm sure they've walked away with some very key aha moments and key learnings that they'll be able to use in their businesses. So I appreciate your time and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I think that's all we have for today. I hope you have a great Friday, and we'll talk to all of you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Great job.